Well, good morning to anybody who may be listening to my ranting this morning. Um, it's a pretty good day. Uh, the weather is not great, but I think it's going to improve. My workshop is now watertight because all my work has proved profitable thanks to the Lord, guides me in every single thing. And my customer, my non-paying customer, suddenly paid yesterday after I turned down a new request for a patent and explained that I hadn't received any payment at all in respect of my work this year. And immediately 2 invoices were paid, bringing me up to date. And I was asked to do another job, so I'll do that. But I'll be a little bit more circumspect now. I want to be sure that they pay me regularly. But again, the Lord has preserved me because it was quite a lot of money, and I needed it, really, because I have a debt. But I'm now at the end of the year and I have enough almost to repay the entire debt. Again, that's thanks to the Lord, of course. Everything has gone beautifully, and it always seems to go perfectly. Um, I feel that the Lord is with me in many things, in all things, and I've been corrected from time to time, and that's good. That's all profitable. And so I do recall I was working with a New Age believer several years ago on my house, and he was coming over quite regularly and helping me with this and helping me with the other. Paid help, of course, not any voluntary work. I won't have that. But he noted after a while that every time we'd agreed to do some work, the sun would be shining. It happened just continually. There might be a rainy spell, and we'd say, well, we'll carry on Monday. And Monday there would be just beautiful sunshine. And he remarked on it. He saw it. It's as though he saw that my life had been blessed. Even when I became ill and went into hospital and had the operation and all that rigmarole and the fear, the memento mori, but everything went well and went smoothly, and I learned many things. I learned many lessons. So it's odd to me that, the person in question, to be perfectly frank, when I look at his life, he's been cursed in many aspects. He has no money. He seems to concentrate a lot on getting money, but seems to end up with none. And so he lives in poverty, I think. And he's a hoarder, so his house is, full of all that old curiosity shop kind of thing. But what happens then? I knew another man down in Somerset who had this problem, and his house was absolutely filthy. He was a very quick and intelligent man, of my own race, whereas my helper is of the Canaanite people. And his house was so poor that I once turned up there with my wife and my daughter many years ago. He's now passed on to be somewhere. I was going to say to be with the Lord, but he wasn't a believer. And he lived in, just filth, because of all the stuff that he had to hoard in his house, because of his nature to collect things and to gather things. And after a while, of course, if you do this to the nth degree, you can't clean because there's no more floor available. The chairs all have stuff piled upon them. This gentleman had a motorbike in his living room, and all around the walls, I remember the first time I visited with my sister, all around the walls of his living room there were stacked up rounds of wet poplar, which he was trying to dry to put into his wood. Had a very good wood burning stove, which I think was hand fabricated. But burning this wet wood produced very little heat, and it produced a lot of humidity. So the environment was just very unhealthy and very ramshackle. And I think he'd inherited the house from his parents. As in the case of my New Age friend, he'd inherited a nice house, and he could have made it lovely for himself and really comfortable. But instead, he buried himself in these people who have this. It's a kind of an illness, really, because they collect and collect to their own detriment. If you're going to buy things to resell on eBay, you have to organize your life, I think, a little bit more carefully, just so that you don't end up living in chaos. So that's the my observation about that. And also, of course, these people, my friend down in Somerset, a very aware man, and very, very sensitive, a poet, a musician, and something of a political activist. He was involved in building tree houses when the city council wanted to remove quite a lot of woodland. And along with some other people, they occupied this space, and he went in the newspapers, and then he was arrested for possession of cannabis. And he was able to plead in court that it was necessary for his mental health. It was a medicine, and he couldn't answer his case because they'd taken his cannabis away, so he wasn't compos mentis to be able to respond properly. And he was somehow let off. It worked. So, props to him for that. So this, very dynamic man, but really the life that he led, I think, was not entirely reasonable and healthy and satisfactory, because nobody wants to live in in such a mess and such an unhealthy environment. This is the problem. Whereas my house is tidy and blessed, not because of my efforts, although of course I try to keep it clean and tidy, but the Lord has helped me by giving me enough work to have some money, and giving me some free time and some energy and some health, that I can do this stuff, and I take great satisfaction in looking after things. So they're like the blessings that you can read about, I think, in Deuteronomy 28, and all the blessings that are reserved for Israel. I feel that I've had many of them since I turned to the Lord, since I became aware of my condition, of my wretched condition. And I just think of the unsaved, that they march towards the grave with no understanding. Because when you're on your deathbed, and I accompanied my mother and my father to the deathbed. When you're on your deathbed in the final moments, and you have they won't give you any water to drink because you'll just vomit it, so they just wet your mouth with a kind of a cotton bud thing, a horrible business. And you're just there hanging on between life and death. Then where's your life? Where's your importance? Where's your greatness? Where's your satisfaction in this life? It's gone. you finally understand that you are nothing more than dust, and you're about to perish from the way, and you have no advocate to guide you. It's a very serious moment. People don't like to think about the moment of death, and I suppose that's quite understandable, but it's helpful. It's a good counsellor to remember what we are, what we will come to, when we will have soiled ourselves in our bed, perhaps, and been subjected to all sorts of humiliation in those final hours, those final days. For some it's weeks, for some it's months it goes on for. And my mother, who was, I believe, saved, she had prolonged death throes, and I see that almost as being a battle that she was enduring. She was 2 days in her agony. They call it agony. I don't know whether she was actually in agony. She wasn't communicating. She was just semi-rigid and shaking continually and muttering and murmuring. And it proceeded for 2 days before she finally passed. Whereas my father, who was a child of the devil in many respects, and had no time for the Word of God, he slipped away one night unexpectedly, but he was nonetheless in a care home, but I wasn't expecting him to die imminently. So I don't know what his final hours were like, although I was with him probably 6 or 7 hours before he died. So, yeah, I'm just thinking of the reality of hell as it's taught in the Bible. I don't know, but, it does speak of eternal torment, where their worm dieth not, and thirst there's no water. This is what it speaks of in the Holy Bible. And those who just refuse to read it, I wonder whether they're seriously considering what their life is, but a vapor, as it says in the Holy Bible. We're really, without the grace of Jesus Christ, we are just brute animals almost. And yet we have a soul and a spirit, and it needs succor, and only Jesus Christ can provide it. God bless this morning.